Hello and welcome. This is Working Class to World Class. But before we go any further, I do have a little favour of you. If you could hit that follow or subscribe button, then that would be a massive help. Thank you. In this episode, I catch up with a lovely lady all the way from Kinross in Scotland. And at the time of recording, she was, and still is, the most medalled Olympian in the country for track and field. It is a brilliant story all about grit and determination. Breaking through the barriers of adversity. I'm Lynn Lester, and this is Working Class to World Class. So Eilidh, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
I know. Now I have to say, I wasn't trying to impress you or anything, but I have been to the gym, so that's why I'm a little flushed looking here, But I think you could probably, embarrass the life out of me when we talk about what you've achieved through the years.
Well, not so much these days.
So,
Maybe during my heyday, but yeah, not so much these days.
well, you talk about the heyday. I mean, there's going to be loads of people that know exactly who you are, but for anyone tuning in that doesn't, do you want to sort of give an outline, or how would you have described yourself back in the day?
Yeah, well, I was a 400 meter hurdler predominantly. Although I kind of had success in over 400 meter flat, 400 meter hurdles, and the 4x4 relay. So I competed for Scotland, I competed for Great Britain, I competed at Olympics, World, Commonwealth, and European level, and medalled at every single one of those champs. And when I retired back in 2021, I had 17 major medals to my name. So I'm still, I think, the most medalled Scottish athlete in track and field ever. But I know the likes of Laura Muir and people like that are catching up with me slowly. So I'm hoping I can at least get another couple of years out of that title before they catch up with me. So yeah, I'd say probably my best achievements. I won an Olympic medal as part of the 4x4 relay team. But I'd say probably my best, I think, performance was becoming European champion over 400 meter hurdles back in 2014. But yeah, lots of medals, lots of different sort of stories to each medal, lots of different ups and downs in an athletics career. But yeah, an athletics career that spanned over a decade, really. I sort of came full time in 2011, and then retired in 2021. But I was doing it, got my first GB cap in 2009 when I was sort of 22.
Oh my goodness, how impressive is all that? I mean, I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever get one of those medals. Well, actually, it's not that I don't think, I know I won't, because it's obviously not how I'm set up. But oh my God, what an achievement. And it must be weird because you're still really young, and you to even say the words, I'm retired. Does that feel, I always felt it was weird when athletes say that. Does it feel weird?
Yeah, because it's strange because although you're retired from your sport, I mean that's that you've got to then go and almost start a new career. And although technically you're young retiring from your sport, you're actually not young kind of starting something else and going and doing another career, or a lot if you've kind of done a career with your sport. So yeah, it's strange. There's that kind of moment when I think a lot of athletes get to that point where they know they may be coming to the end of their career or they're thinking about other things. But yeah, once you kind of officially announce that retirement and you think, right, that's me, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. Something that, like I said, I did for over a decade. So I was, yeah, it's strange. It's not, for me. It was nice. It was nice to kind of stop and say, yep, that's me done. But also quite daunting because it was like, right, what do I do now? What will I, what are my qualifications, what are my experiences, what are my skills? So yeah, it's strange. Although, like you say, you're young retiring, you're actually old going into another line of work, at the age of 36.
God, that's like a really good point. I never actually thought of that before, although that's really obvious when you say it.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I guess I always think, when I'm 90 and I'm, listen to me, optimism, but when I'm old and, I've retired and all that, I'm sure I'll retire before I'm 90. And then, I think to myself, God, how must that feel? Because I remember my dad, when he retired, I mean, my dad died when he was 74, and I remember him retiring, not massively long before it. But from then, it was just really alien to him. It was, the difference is he wasn't going on to do anything else. He was
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
hanging about, and it was very different. But I guess you're occupied because I'm sure you get picked up and you're doing a lot of, were you not the face of Glasgow? Was it Commonwealth?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah, I was a sort of poster girl, and Mike
Yeah,
in the summer was the poster boy. Yeah, so that was probably the real intense point of my career was
yeah.
sort of 2013 to 2016, probably the sort of, or even 2012 kind of, home Olympic Games. But I wasn't really. an athlete at that point that was kind of going to be somebody who was going to be making finals or medaling at that point. But probably that kickstarted my kind of big years. So 2012, 2013, then it was, Commonwealth Games 2014, and then Rio Olympics 2016. So yeah, that was a kind of real significant point in my career. Quite and thinking back now, quite surreal to think back, and all that sort of, because when there's a championships that goes on, it's really intense. See, for those like 2 weeks, it's just like everybody just gets behind it, and especially when the Commonwealth Games came to Glasgow, for those 2 weeks, everybody was just glued to their telly, or they're watching like all the sports that were going on. And I remember like even just little things like Twitter followers were like shooting up by like thousands every day, because like people were just all of a sudden like tuned into who you were, who didn't know you before. So yeah, really kind of strange, but really like amazing experience, and something that I would never have got a chance to sort of repeat anywhere else again. Like that was such an amazing sort of time. But yeah, quite, I think back to it now and think, how did I get through that? I get through that sort of,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the thing as well, because we're going to go back in time in a second,
Mm-hmm.
but like, what I think is amazing is if you look at it now, you are the influencer. You know what we class as influencers now, and they've got so many followers. As you say, you're looking at Twitter or whatever, or X or whatever it's called in 2 years, but you're looking at that, and you're just seeing your followers and your reach expanding. So yeah, you certainly were an influencer in your day. So and now, I mean, I'm sure you've got a lot of fans still to this day. And if we kind of go back, what I'm really keen to know for this podcast, I guess, is how did you get to where you were? I mean, obviously it's a lot of hard work. I know that, and I'm not under no illusion. It takes a lot of, yeah, I guess, what's the word for it? Being strict with yourself. But if we go back to before you were ever good at anything, you were a wee baby, where were you born and brought up?
I was born in Perth, but we only lived in Perth for a couple of years. I was born in 1987, and we moved from Perth to Kinross in sort of 1989, 1990. So I grew up in Kinross, and that's where my family home still is. My mum and dad still live there. So yeah, I spent my childhood living there, and it's funny because I've kind of come full circle. I live just outside Kinross now, with my family. So yeah, it was a nice place to grow up, a nice kind of quiet, but fairly central place. You weren't too far from sort of Glasgow, Dundee, and Edinburgh. So yeah, a nice little town to grow up in.
Oh, nice. Did you have siblings, or were you an only child?
Yes, I'm one of four. I'm the youngest of four, so I've got two big sisters and a big brother. So yeah, quite a chaotic household, I think. Would probably be
Yeah.
the our family, but all massively into sport, like all kind of just played a variety of sport. We all swam to begin with. So my mum swam, that was her sport. And she used to coach and teach, and then actually went on to work in a swimming pool. So we were kind of, a lot of my childhood was spent in a swimming pool, just up and down, swimming constant lengths of a swimming pool, as was my same for my brother and sisters. And then we all kind of differed off into different sports. My brother went to football, me and my other sister went to athletics, and my eldest sister, she kind of stuck, she was the only one that sort of probably stuck the swimming out a bit longer than the rest of us. Sorry, my dog's next to me on the couch, so he just had a big sigh. So you're thinking somebody's bored with my
Dogs are welcome. Dogs, if your kids get up out of bed, they're welcome too.
So yeah, so
So I mean, that's cool because
no, so I'm just saying that yeah, we were brought up kind of. My mum and dad didn't necessarily play a massive amount of sport. They were just like fans of sport. So we liked football and all that sort of stuff. So again, the household was kind of surrounded by people watching sport and playing a variety of different sports as well.
wow, an active family. I mean, it's funny, my nephew, he was always into swimming, and we always thought he would, do really well in that kind of genre of sport. But it ended up that, he gave up, he found girls, and he wanted to go out, and he just wasn't disciplined like that. But I think it was, I can't remember the guy's name. I think, was it this year or whatever, or not this year, but whatever the latest championships were, and it's one of the guys that wins for Scotland. And I remember when they were kids, my nephew used to beat him in the swimming pool, but not so much now. I bet he looks at it and he's kicking himself. But yeah, and sport was never a thing I was good at. I was never good at sport, so that was my downfall actually. And so, did you find that when you spent family time together, as you said, you were in the pool, or was your family always like as a unit doing sort of active things out in the field or whatever it might be?
In the early days, yes, I remember like we all swam for the same club, so we all went to swimming training together. Although we were kind of obviously in different groups within that training because well, there's 7 years between my older sister and me, so my brother and other sister kind of fit into that. So yeah, so they would be obviously doing the harder training, and I was quite young when I started, and then laterally it was kind of we all did different sports. So it kind of mum and dad would kind of taxi us around the country, like doing different things. So it'd be me and my sister to maybe athletics training, my brother to football, my sister. So yeah, early days we did it all together. I remember actually we used to go early morning training. We used to do early morning swimming before school, all of us kind of getting up and going to the pool, and I think that's probably one of the reasons I didn't carry on my career as a swimmer, because I was not really a morning person, and it was that once I got there and got in the pool I was fine, but it was kind of later on that morning, like going to school and just being absolutely knackered, and yeah, the thought of getting up the next morning to go swimming training was never really that appealing to me. So I think that was one of many reasons why my swimming career never really took off.
It wasn't your thing. I think the thing is, it's brutal, isn't it, swimming? Because you're doing weights from a young age. You're up at as you say, it's like 5 a.m. or something. It's like crazy hours that they're in the pool. And so, when did you sort of discover then you had skills in other ways for what you ended up doing?
It was probably down to my sister. So I always kind of knew I was a decent runner. I was always kind of knew I was fairly quick in comparison to like my friends and things like that. But it was my big sister Iona. So she's only 2 or 3 years older than I am, and she ran a cross country for the school. So she was in primary six, and they took a group of kids from the primary school to go and run this cross country, and it was a Scottish Schools cross country through in Kirkcaldy. And Iona turned up in sort of big hoodie, tracky bottoms, trainers, just turned up as somebody just to kind of run this race. And we kind of knew she was decent and she was quick, but she won this cross country, and I don't think, well, she definitely didn't expect it. Her teachers never expected it. And then it was kind of after that, somebody came up to her after the race and said, what club are you with? And she said, oh, I don't run for a club, I just kind of run for fun. And they said, oh, you definitely need to come down to a club, like, you've got so much talent there, it'd be great to sort of see what you could do on a track and things. So she kind of went along and joined our local club, which was Petrivi Athletics Club through in Dunfermline. And I kind of just went along with her to, because I kind of enjoyed running, and I thought this would be fun. And again, it was something that, mum could take us both to. So, you give her a bit of time to get rid of both of us for like, an hour or so for training. So that was kind of how I got into it. And then I just enjoyed it. And then when you sort of start off, I was only 9 when I joined the club. You do everything, you try every single event, and yeah, I was always kind of good. I was always kind of top three thereabouts. Occasionally I would maybe win an event, but more track running, 800 meters and things like that.
Yeah.
And then again, Iona, my big sister, tried hurdling, and I thought I'll give this a go and see how good I am at that. And then I kind of just found my event and started to win things. And then I was like, all right, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to be good at. And it just kind of progressed very naturally on from there. It sounds like it was a kind of straightforward pathway like that. And it was to an extent, but it was kind of a wee bit up and down. But yeah, that was pretty much how I got into it and how it evolved from there.
Wow. Well, congratulations. At least someone's seen something in you. And as you said, you started winning all these races, so they knew you were good. But I think sometimes what people forget is that the things that your family give up as well to help you get to where you are. Because I know there's a lot of traveling. Like when my nephew did the swimming, my family, my sister and her husband were taking them to all these different places. Like it's far flung, and they weren't really getting any money to support them, to help travel or whatever. So because obviously you're from a working class family, right? So for you, what was that like through the eyes of your parents, do you think?
Yeah, I think they just loved to see us kind of progress well at sport. So I never ever felt like it was like a burden for them or hard for them. I just thought this is kind of what we do as a family. Like we go here, there, and everywhere. And it's probably only now that I've got kids that I think, God, like they must have been so busy. And it's funny because I think back sometimes. I remember like one of my really close friends. We've been friends since primary school, and I remember her family were always quite organised, and so every night they would sit 5:30 and have dinner, and they'd all be around the table having dinner together. And I remember thinking, oh, we never do that. Like, why are we different, our family? And it was because we were just all everywhere. Like, you know, mum was here taking us, and my dad was working, or you know, my sister would be there. Like, so it was really kind of chaotic, our lifestyle, but it's because they just wanted to make sure we were doing everything that we wanted to do. And I probably didn't appreciate it so much at the time, but definitely, you know, laterally in my career, and like since retiring, and you get that chance to sort of go back and reflect, and definitely now since having kids, I think, wow, like everything they did, I certainly wouldn't have had the career I had it not been for them and the time that they gave, and even just like, you know, it wasn't just a case that they would come and drop me off and go away. Like, they stayed, they supported, they wanted to, you know, watch and cheer me on, and yeah. And it's funny now, my dad, like, I remember my dad, he's terrible, he gets really nervous, and I remember him on those sort of earlier races, he used to sort of walk back and forth around the track because he didn't want to come and chat to me because he didn't want to make me nervous and things. And then as I got older and better and at bigger competitions, like, that was still my dad, he was still that nervous wreck for my races and me competing. And it's funny, that just kind of, that was the consistent, you know, throughout my whole career. So yeah, I have a lot to sort of thank them for, and definitely definitely wouldn't have the career had it not been for them. And yeah, I probably didn't really appreciate it until now, really.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, you know, your mum and dad, as you say, gave so much. And I think the thing is, we can't underestimate, you know, if your kids, and I've got a son as well, but you know, when they do well and whatever it is, you have that sheer joy and pleasure to watch them. And your dad was probably nervous because he just didn't want you to fail or lose,
Yeah,
not because that was a
no,
bad thing, but because it was for you. He wanted his little
exactly.
girl to do well. So, I mean, did you, like, you know, through your career, you know, as you said, it wasn't a straight path, and obviously you had to work hard.
Mhm.
But, you know, was there any sort of pitfalls that you came across that could have actually wiped you out the sport?
Yeah, probably two significant ones. I'd say the first one was going to university. So I went to university in Edinburgh, and I went to university when I was 17. And I think coming from that environment where my mum and dad did everything for me, you know, they taxied me to and from training, to and from competitions, you know, made my dinner and everything like that. So then moving into sort of halls of residence, being surrounded by students, that student lifestyle, I definitely didn't kind of go into university prepared for that. I kind of just went in thinking it'll be fine, I'll balance everything, you know, it'll all work out. And then I kind of just got totally like absorbed in the student lifestyle, you know, just going out, drinking, just having fun. And I never really let on to my flatmates at the time that I was kind of that good at sport. You know, I just said, like, I did athletics, and it was PE teaching that I did. So everybody on your course is kind of got a sport that they're good at, you know. I never let on, and my friends from uni are again still my friends to this day, and they always laugh and they say, I can't believe you didn't tell us, like, you know, we're talking about the sports we do, and you were, you know, you just thought it was like, they obviously thought it was a hobby the way I spoke about it. But yeah, I really struggled to kind of get that balance, and kind of got to a point where I thought, "Oh, I'm just going to quit and stop my athletics and just enjoy, you know, having a normal life, you know, and not having to worry about training or any of
Mm-hmm.
that sort of stuff." Um, and then I probably did that for like a good kind of year, and then I sort of missed it, and I was out of shape, you know, I'd put weight on, and I just thought, "Oh, I actually don't want to be this person. I want to kind of go back and see how good I can be at the athletics." And so there was a good kind of couple of years of really kind of um being humbled, you know, and kind of being back training, back racing girls,
Yeah.
being that bit heavier, that bit slower, and really kind of digging deep to make sure I wanted it, and knowing that I wanted it. But I kind of look back and think it was really like significant in that moment, because it did make me realize that I missed it. You know, it could have been a case that I stopped and that was it, I went away. But because I did stop and then things changed, I thought, I actually missed this. I want to get back into my sport. And if ever there was kind of a blip again, I always kind of thought back to that moment and thought, well, actually, remember, you didn't do it, and you missed it for that
Yeah.
period of time. So yeah, I think it was good to kind of get that out of my system. That little sort of, I call it my forgotten years, that sort of party years at university where I could enjoy that, but I managed to thankfully get back into the sport after that.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, because you were out drinking, it probably was some forgotten years
Yeah,
or
definitely.
forgotten moments. And but you know, what you're saying is so true, because I think at that point it probably made you, didn't it? Because it's like you
Mm.
knew you wanted it
Yeah.
more than you ever knew you wanted it then. But
Uh-huh.
one thing I have to ask you is you didn't let on to your friends that you were good. Was there a reason for that?
I think it just, I think it's just a fit in, isn't it? You just want to, like, you don't really want to be too special when you start uni, do you? You kind of want to just be able to kind of fit in, and obviously you're living with these people, you're kind of all thrown together in this environment. So it's like you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. You kind of just want to, yeah, be kind of normal and the thing is that and I hadn't experienced a massive amount of success at that point. I'd been sort of British champion over the event, and I'd broken the British record and things like that. But kind of looking back now in the grand scheme of things, I hadn't done a massive amount. But yeah, I think it was just more that you just didn't want to draw any attention to yourself. It was just like, we just kind of fit in and slide into this lifestyle with everybody else. You know, everybody else is coming to a university, moving away from home for
Yeah.
the first time. It's freshers week, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it just kind of happened that way.
Do you know, it's really interesting because I almost think it reminds me of two things. One is, and it may or may not have been the case for you, but I think sometimes it's the mentality of a working class person and a woman,
Mhm.
where you don't want to show off, you don't want to talk yourself up too much. I mean, winning championships is it's a really big deal, you know. And
Mhm.
here's you just not saying much, and then it kind of reminds me of, if you watched Ted Lasso yet.
I've
Have you
started
seen the
watching it.
program
Yeah,
Ted
I'm only about
Lasso?
kind of 3
Oh,
episodes.
I don't want to ruin it in case you're not in the bit yet, but there's a part where he plays darts and
Right.
he's much better than he ever let on. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you anymore because
Mhm.
it'll ruin it, and it's brilliant. But
Yeah.
when you get to that scene, think of this conversation,
Okay.
because it
Right.
totally
Okay.
reminds me of that. So so but here's the thing, right? So you're at uni. So when did your friends start seeing that you were getting good? Were you competing and then they seen it for themselves?
No, I didn't really compete. So again, the sort of handy thing about university is obviously you start in September and then you're kind of finished by April, which is kind of then, but the athletic season is pretty much April to September. So actually, when I was at uni, I wouldn't have been competing anyway. I would have been training, and that was the problem, was I wasn't kind of fitting in any training, and that
Right.
is the most important part, that September to kind of Christmas phase in particular, to get that hard training in. So really, they weren't. They knew I did it. They knew I was going to compete. I went and did the sort of British universities for the uni and things. It was actually my friends from home, so my friends that I'd gone to school with. Two of my best friends, one went to uni in Aberdeen and one went to Glasgow, and they were kind of checking in and they're like, is everything okay? Like, you know, because obviously they were kind of seeing me every so often. They'd obviously would have seen that I'd put on weight and things, and they're like, are you still training now? So they were actually the ones that sort of were a bit concerned. And then I think they highlighted it to a couple of my friends when they came through for visits and stuff like that. And I think they were like, yeah, she, you know, it's not just a hobby, you know, she's pretty good at it, you know. And then it's like I say, my flatmate, well, one of my flatmates at the time, she, you know, she's been such a great friend, and she was my bridesmaid and that, and she always refers back to that. And she said, it just, why didn't you tell us? Like, you know, why didn't you tell us? We would have helped you. We would have, you know, we would have made sure we were eating better and all that sort of stuff. And I say, look, yeah, I know that now, but I just think actually, um, it was
Yeah.
probably a blessing in disguise in the long run, because, like I say, it allowed me to realize how much it meant to me. But yeah, it's funny kind of thinking back, and just that kind of attitude of just, yeah, I won't let on too much.
I won't tell them. And then see when you get your head around it, so you can tell me about this because it'll motivate me personally.
Mhm.
But how, you know, when you've obviously got to be disciplined and you have to look at your nutrition and your training, and I'm assuming that's all these things that you have to do.
Mhm.
How do you keep focus where you don't fall off the wagon, where you stay true to the mission?
Well, I think
What do you do?
it's got to be a sort of a lifestyle. I don't like the word lifestyle change, but it's got to be something that works for you. So it can't be like this strict. If it's not going to work, you know, you can't be strict and on a healthy eating kick or whatever it is, like 100% of the time. You've got to have leeway, and you've got to allow yourself, you know, that little bit of downtime. I remember I went through a whole different kind of phase of different nutritionists, and you know, and people who you work with, and psychologists, and all these guys, and you know, you get ones that work and get you. And I remember this nutritionist, a guy called Glenn. a brilliant guy. He actually went on to work with Andy Murray in tennis. But he said to me, see if you're good 90% of the time, he said, that 10% of the time, it's okay to have something if you need it or you want it. He says, but if you're good 90% of the time, then that 10% of the time it's okay. He says, because otherwise you drive yourself crazy. And so it's fitting in for what works for you. If it's something that you don't enjoy doing, if you're trying to do this bad diet or you're trying to do something that you just don't enjoy doing, or you're trying to like count down to the end of it, it's not going to work. It's got to be something that works in with you. And so it was about sort of eating well, but eating normally. So when I'm having my dinner and I'm eating, healthily, or I'm eating something, it's not, I'm eating healthy. This is just a normal dinner for me. This is just a normal sort of thing I'm eating.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. I remember trying a sort of diet thing, and it was kind of like a bodybuilder's kind of diet thing that somebody had recommended, and it was like you counted everything, and it was all about the calories, and but it was something. I remember just having like loads of like baked potatoes one week, and they didn't even really have anything on them. It was really boring. And I was my husband. Well, he wasn't. I don't think he was my husband at the time. We were driving home one day. I just said to him, we were arguing about something. I said, I'm just starving. I just want like a Mars bar. And we both were just burst out laughing, because it was like we've both been trying to kind of keep up this kind of diet to sort of encourage each other to do it. But it just wasn't sustainable. It just wasn't enjoyable. It was just like, and it was just the point where I was like, right, this is not working. If I'm like screaming at you because I want some sort of chocolate, like this is not working for us. And I think that's it. I think you've got to do something that's realistic to your lifestyle, and it's something that you can carry on doing. And it's and I love food. Like I get pleasure from eating nice, tasty food. So yeah, it has to work. And the good thing is now there's so many options out there to for nice, healthy food. Albeit it's maybe a bit more pricier, but yeah, I think you've got to just kind of figure out what it is you need, what fuels you, what fuel do you need to get in and out of you, and what is going to work for you and your lifestyle. So yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of, I think probably with the influencer thing and the Instagram thing, there's lots of unrealistic things out there that aren't actually true and aren't the reality. So yeah, it's got to be what works for you and yeah, what works for your lifestyle.
Do you know, I think that's probably one of the most sort of amazing pieces of advice I've heard for ages, and I think people tuning into this, it'll really resonate, because you're right. A lot of the time people think they have to be a certain way to be successful, or whether it be successful in life or at a sport or at something. But as you say, moderation is absolutely everything. So yeah, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna stop punishing myself. I spoke to myself the other day in a really bad way, and I thought, if I was my friend, I wouldn't hang out with me, because you're just not nice to yourself. So I need to be a bit kinder. I do. But this is my first day back at the gym for a while.
But it's also as well, there's like so many different body types too, and I think I was in a sport as well, obviously, where bodies are on display a lot, because the outfits that you wear in athletics are quite skimpy. But no matter how many abs or sit-ups I did in my career, I would never have a six-pack, like a toned. I would have quite a flat stomach and it'd be lean enough. But I remember being in teams with the 4x4 girls, and there were some of the girls on my team, they had proper, like 8-packs. They had, and I remember thinking, I don't know, am I not doing things right? But I ran faster than a lot of them as well. So it was about, well, actually, my body's in tune to get the best performance out of me for what it is I need to do. So my body can get me around the track as fast as I need to go, over hurdles or whatever. So actually, it doesn't matter what the perception is of what looks strong and what looks fit. It's about your body and what you get out of it as well. And I think that's really important to understand, is especially, for young girls, it's like, oh, right, I want to be able to look like that because I'll run well, but that's actually not necessarily the case. Everybody's very different. And like I say, I could have done 100 sit-ups every single day. I was never going to get the six-pack the way some of my teammates had six-packs. It's just we're built differently, and that's it. And we've got different physiques. But I understood how to get the best out of my body the way I wanted it to. So I think that's important as well.
100%. And here's the thing, they talk about, mind over matter sometimes. And obviously, you were eating well, exercising, doing your training, everything that you had to do. But I can imagine, I mean, I can hardly run the lane for myself. I'm really bad. I can do a spin class, but I can't run. But you know, oh, that's not true. I'm going to take that back. I don't like it. That's why I don't do it. But if you know, say you're running in a competition and you get to the point where your body's like just failing you, you can't go. But is that when the sort of the little one in your shoulder pops up and tells you and mentally pushes you? And can you talk me through that? Because I just think that's really interesting to hear it from an athlete like you.
Yeah, well, the mental side is so important. And again, probably I think people are understanding it more now. I think when I first started in the sport, it was very much like you either have the mindset to be an athlete, or to be a winner, say, or you don't. If you've not got that mindset, then that's it. It doesn't matter how talented you are. And I maybe thought that to begin with, but then I started working with a psychologist. So not a sports psychologist, just a performance psychologist. And that was after 2012 in London. So I went to London Olympics, and I qualified really straightforward, and I went to the Olympics in really good shape. But when I got there, I just was totally overwhelmed by the whole experience. Just being in the village, seeing these like famous athletes, not necessarily the ones in my sport, but people like, Chris Hoy or Andy Murray and all these people, and just feeling totally out of place. Understanding it later, it was kind of imposter syndrome. It was that kind of feeling of, I don't belong here, I shouldn't be here. And I had a really terrible experience at the Olympics. It was horrible. And that was my first ever like Olympic Games. And I remember thinking back to like the young Eilidh when, I was starting at my club and I just loved sport. And I remember thinking, God, what the hell happened? Like I managed to get to an Olympics, and like a home Olympics as well, not just any Olympics. And I really didn't like the experience. And it was just mindset. Like, I went into that seeing other athletes as being like this, way above me, and feeling quite low, and low self-esteem and low confidence. So off the back of that, I started working with this psychologist called Mike. And it was we just kind of chatted away, almost a bit like therapy to begin with. And he would just ask me questions to kind of get out of me the information that I needed to tell myself. So he wasn't ever telling me anything, because he had no real knowledge of the event I did or what I did. But he would ask the right questions to get the right answers so I could hear them from myself. And I worked for him throughout my whole career. Even after I retired, I still would chat to him just about things, because it was understanding mindset, understanding, what it is to get the best out of a performance. And it's just massive, but it can be trained. You can train the mindset, you can learn skills, you can, just like you train your body to go and perform, you can train your mind to understand the skills that it needs to be able to go and perform, or to go and do anything really. And I think that's just so important, that actually that's something that's just as important as going and doing your gym sessions or your track sessions, is actually, understanding your mindset, understanding, right, what can I do to get the best out of myself on this track or for this performance. So something I learned, kind of in the middle of my career, but something that I would look back on now and think, goodness, that was so important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's key, isn't it, to success? And I wonder, see in the sports, and where you were excelling, is class a thing? Like, to be a working class person and doing these sports, do you think that adds to the imposter syndrome, or are you treated differently, or does that not really come into it?
Well, I don't think so, because athletics is probably one of the most inclusive sports that there is, because
Yeah.
anybody can do it really, and it applies to everybody. It's not just about running as fast as you can. It's about you can throw as far as you can, jump as high as you can. It's you can be a big huge thrower, you can be like a tiny little sprinter, or a tiny little endurance athlete, or a big endurance athlete. It's just about being able to have access to run. I mean, obviously, as you get a bit more into it, it's you need to be able to afford the equipment, the spikes. You need to be able to travel, but ultimately, getting into the sport and starting off is very inclusive, and you see the massive diversity across all the events, and pretty much every country in the world does athletics. It's not like certain sports where actually it's fine. It's financial, like some of the like off the top of my head, things like modern pentathlon or even cycling, you know, where it's actually a lot of it's based on the equipment, and it's about actually the money that goes into that sport because they've got the best bikes or, you know, the best suits, all that sort of stuff. Athletics isn't like that. You know, it's very inclusive in terms of that. And one of the nicest things about athletics as well, in terms of male and female, it's prize money is the same. You know, the events are the same. You know, it's 100 meters men, 100 meter women. It's, you know, it's so that's nice. So I do think we're fortunate in terms of that. It's probably one of those sports where actually, it doesn't matter your background. You know, if you can throw, if you can run, if you can jump, you're in. You know, you'll get hopefully you'll make it and you'll get to the top.
See, that's fantastic, isn't it? And you know, as you say, you're as good as you're good. You know, if you're good at what you do, you get the respect and you earn it that way.
Yeah.
And but do you think when you were a kid, like imagine you picture yourself, the little girl, little Ailey in the school playground, did you ever think in a million years you would be like the most medalled athlete in Scotland or this champion? Like, yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine like you'd think that, but maybe you did. I don't know.
No, it's weird. Your perception is totally different. So I think when I was younger and probably when I was swimming, I thought I'm going to be a swimmer and that's what I'm going to do. That like I'm going to go to the Olympics and be an Olympic swimmer, but not having any understanding or concept of what that means to do that. You know what the time and the commitment and the training that goes into that. You know, it's that kind of like nice innocent delusion as a youngster. You know, where you don't really understand all the ins and outs of things. And then probably when I, you know, got a bit older, went to school, high school, then went to university, it became more of this is something I do on the side. You know, I'll go away and I'll get my degree, and then that'll be what I do as a job. And then I got my first GB cap in 2009, my senior cap. So I graduated in 2008, got my first senior cap in 2009, and then from then on, I made every single championship team after that. And that's when, but it wasn't until 2011 that I became a full-time athlete. So I was still working up until that point. And probably it wasn't until then that I thought I can do this as a job, until I actually left my job and did it. So, I mean, that was pretty late in the game as well. So I think, yeah, there was that innocence and that kind of, excitement as a youngster of what I would want to go and do. But actually, as I got older, the reality sort of sunk in. And then probably I didn't get the belief early enough. I don't think I probably should have believed a bit earlier that I could go and do that. But it didn't do any harm, you know.
Yeah, well, everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? And you know, like, what was it like then? So, you know, when you started becoming this champion, what goes through your head? So you're ranked number one in whatever you're doing. Yeah, but what's going through your mind?
It's strange because you do just take every race or every championships, you know, one race at a time, or I certainly did. So, you know, probably my most successful years, like I say, were sort of 2013, 14, 15, 16, really. And yeah, you just, every race you're just trying to improve. And again, a lot of this was down to the work that I was doing with my psychologist, Mike. It was kind of like you treat every race the same. It's about just perfecting your performance. You know, every time you go and step on the track, you're wanting to do a little bit better than you did the last time. And it's about analysing that race from before to then, you know, fine tune it for the next time and the next time. So I was very kind of, I got my satisfaction from performance from me and my being able to go out there. And I was lucky because the event that I did, well, predominantly the event that I did, 400 meter hurdles, it's a very technical event and you're in your own lane. So you know, you've got your 10 hurdles. It's not like an 800 meters or a 15 where somebody could influence your tactics. So I could perfect that. It was very tuned into me. And you know, in 400 hurdles, you've got a stride pattern. So it was like, this is my strides. I'll do this strides to this hurdle, this to this. So every time I was stepping on the track, it was this kind of process of that, running that. So when it went to the big, you know, the big champs like the Olympics, like the Commonwealth Games, like Europeans and Worlds, it was a case of, it's just another race. You go through this process. And then when you win medals and you have success, you sometimes don't really get time to enjoy it because you're going through that process of, right, that was a really good run. I've got my medal. Brilliant. It probably wasn't until I retired where I could just stop and say, that was brilliant, like, you know, that you know, all those medals and that. But I think, you know, when you're in it, you're just in it, and then you're thinking, once one champ's over, you're thinking to the next champs the next year, you know. And it's, you don't really get a chance just to pause and enjoy it. It's just, but I think if you do that, maybe you sometimes don't get the best performances out of yourself. I don't know, that was the way I did it anyway.
Yeah, well, it does make a lot of sense. And I guess as well, the stuff that you learned mentally and not just the physical stuff, because you just said the mental behaviour is really, really important and key. And, the fact that you've retired and you're about to go on and do whatever it is the next thing, I'm sure there's so many learnings in your career to date that it's transferable skills as well. It's all about tenacity, being assertive, being disciplined, being driven. I can, is that I'll write your CV for you, that'll help you.
Definitely. And I've done a couple of talks. I've done a couple of talks to businesses and I did a talk the other week there to a sales team. And I remember thinking, probably said to me a few years ago, like, you do a talk to these people, I would have thought, what the heck can I say to these people that has any relevance to what it is they do? But there's skills in there, there's traits in there that actually apply to everyday life. And there's skills and there's traits that I've learned through my athletics career, but that I use in everything. And it was about understanding what those skills were. Like I remember when I retired, I did think, right, well, I've spent the last 10 years running 400-meter hurdles to the best of my ability. Where is that going to be useful in the real world? Where is that skill going to be applicable anywhere else apart from on a track? But actually, it was about understanding and just pulling apart, like, well, actually, what did you experience there? What did you learn from that? What went through your mind? Actually, that's really relevant here or there. So yeah, there's loads of transferable skills there, because I think we all have moments of doubt. We all have moments where imposter syndrome. We all have moments where we get nervous or we doubt ourselves. And I think there's so many skills that I learned through athletics that, again, like I say, can apply to other aspects of life when you've got doubt, or you've got even just standing up and doing a talk like that. When it's out of your comfort zone, it's like, actually, right, prepare and all that sort of stuff. It's so relevant.
I mean, despite being talented the way you are, what would you say would be your superpower? So forget the physical side of it. Out of everything you've learned in all these years, but what's Eilidh's superpower?
It's funny because my husband always says this is my superpower, and it's probably been a superpower, but it's probably been a bit of a disadvantage at times as well. But my superpower is probably that I'm quite a level person. So I don't necessarily get too emotional about things. I'm not really up or down. And so when I used to run, one of my strengths was just my consistency. I'd pretty much go out on the track and I would run what I would kind of be expected to run. I very rarely had, bad races where, everything just went absolutely to pop. But I very rarely had races where I did something exceptional, and surpassed my expectations. And, I remember going to the Olympic Games in Rio and making the final, and all the girls that were in the final, I'd beaten them at various points throughout the year. We'd all been very close, and I finished 8th in that final. And I remember crossing the line thinking, I did nothing wrong there. I ran a really solid race, but I just wasn't in the race. The rest of the girls were ahead of me, but there was girls in that race that just, they did something extra special that day, and they say that's what an Olympics does to people. Some people just raise their game, without, not the way they've been competing for the rest of the season. Something about the Olympics, which means that you just kind of bring something else out. But I wasn't that sort of athlete. I was, what you see is what you get. I was consistent, I was solid. And sometimes, that was brilliant because, I went to the European Championships as the favourite and I won. When I went to the Commonwealth Games as doing the poster girl, I won my medal. So I never really went there and there was a big upset or anything like that. But a couple of times I thought, oh, it would have been great to actually have done something like out of this world. But again, I probably wouldn't have had this career that I had if I had not been that athlete. So it's about kind of understanding your superpower, really. And that was mine. And that comes over in a lot of things. So like nowadays when I'm dealing with my children, it's about, my husband's like, how are you able to stay calm in the situation? But it's about that kind of levelness. I won't, like I said, get too angry. I very really sort of shout or anything like that. I can be quite understanding and quite level about that. So I definitely think that's my superpower.
Yeah, and you sound like a great mother as well. I wish I didn't shout. Although Lewis is now 21, so I've probably done all this. I'd probably do more of it now. I'm joking. He's a good lad. And so to sort of conclude then, obviously, the theme of this is working class to world class. And I mean, it's amazing, regardless of because class only comes into it in different ways. So to see, to meet you and to hear your story, I think it's just really it's fulfilling, I think, for not obviously for you, but for people tuning in. You know, if you've got a talent, you can really build it. But do you think there's anything that you could put down to your sort of working class roots that's helped you become what you are today?
I think just that understanding of hard work. I think probably hard work and patience. I think what we probably live in now is a world that we get everything instantly. Like, so if you want to know something, you can literally just Google it. You know, or if you want to order something, you can order it and it'll arrive the next day. Like, you know, everything is so quick and instant.
Yeah.
Success isn't. Like, you have to work hard, you have to graft, and and sometimes you work really, really, really hard, but you still don't get the result that you want. You know, and
Yeah.
I look at, you know, you look at the Olympics. Nobody that goes to the Olympics doesn't work hard to get there. But only one person gets to stand on the podium. So only one person gets to get the gold. Now, that doesn't mean that that person worked any harder than the other person did. Just meant that it was their day. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's what it taught me, you know, very much from my parents and from my family was, you know, you have to work hard. If you really want something and you really, you know, you really want to achieve, you have to put in the graft, you have to put in the hard work. And if it doesn't go your way, you just have to kind of keep working it again. Like, you know, and you can't say it's not fair. You can't say, oh, you know, that I deserve that more than that person. No, it's just life. So I think, yeah, I think it's that you have to work hard, but you have to be patient as well. I think that's what it taught me.
Wow, well, congratulations on everything you've achieved. You are an amazing person. You know, and thank you so much for coming on today. And you know, and what people don't realise is we've done it in the evening because you had to put the kids to bed. So there you go. It's dedication to the cause.
Well, thankfully they went down nice and easy. I was looking at my clock thinking, right, am I going to be late for this? But yeah, they were okay tonight.
You were very punctual. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, can't wait to stream this out to the world.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.